to tell you straight away, like most stories about a life, this one ends with a death. So don't hold your breath.
This is Carlos Aliaga for the online radio show Lejos De La Multitud. And today I'm talking with Dunstan Bruce. He's a documentarist and one of the vocalists. He was one of the vocalists of the English band Chumbawamba, and then he was the vocalist of Interrobang. Along with Sophie Robinson, he directed a documentary which started via Kickstarter under the name A Get Knocked Down, the Untold Story of Chumbawamba. But now it's been premiered, it's been shown on film festivals as just I Get Knocked Down. I would like to start asking you if this change of name means that the documentary evolved into something very different than what you set to do in the first place, perhaps due to the pandemic and lockdowns?
Well, exactly that, Carlos, you're right. Yes, that is exactly what happened. When I first went to meet Sophie to talk about the documentary, it was a film that was going to be about what can a political band achieve when it enters the mainstream. That was my idea, that I wanted to talk about, is it possible to subvert the mainstream? What can you achieve by becoming part of the mainstream and entering popular culture? Is there a place for explicitly political bands in that world? Can you survive in that world? What can you possibly achieve? And so we started making that film, talking about those sort of ideas about is it possible to change the world in the smallest of ways by joining that club, which is what happened to Chumbawamba. We had a hit single. Obviously, there was massive all around the world, and what that did was give us a platform to express our politics, or enable other people to express their politics through Chumbawamba. When me and Sophie were pitching the documentary at various film festivals to try and get funding for it, what we found was happening was that people, commissioners, funders, they remembered the song. They all knew the song, and they all had very, very fond memories of dancing to that song or singing that song. But they wanted to know what the contemporary story of the film was, that it wasn't just a nostalgic look back at a band who had a hit single once. And basically what these people were saying was that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough just to talk about the past. That we needed a contemporary element, an up-to-date story, yes, that people could relate to. And so as it happens, as we were making the film, I'd already started Interrobang, was doing Interrobang, so I'd sort of already made that kind of transition to getting back up on stage and expressing, my political views or my opinion on the world or how I felt about the world through Interrobang. And so Sophie and I sort of realised that was the current story, and that was maybe the part of the story which without sounding really cliched, that was me getting back up again.
You did it, and I want to congratulate you for the result, because it felt very engaging, and you managed something very difficult, that is to mix the right amount of personal politics with the politics of the band and with the past and the present. It was a very difficult how you say balance that you nailed it perfectly. And also there was another Chumbawamba documentary, so this one was like an evolution. I have this one.
Well, do you know what? That's a really, really good point that you're making. Is that yes. People ask why is the documentary, not the story, Chumbawamba. But I made that documentary in 2000 with Ben Unwin. So we've made that.
You were also working with Ben. It was.
Yes.
It's a fantastic documentary. It's a fantastic.
Yeah. So we did that in 2000. I think it was in 2000. So it felt as though when I met Sophie, I told her about that documentary, and I mean, she made it clear that we weren't going to just make that documentary again, that we had to make something new and interesting and fresh.
It is.
And I think what was important for us is that it's a film. We wanted to make a film that was inclusive, so anybody who was watching it could empathize or understand that feeling of wanting to still do something in the world, which is what the film is trying to do. So everything with Babyhead, the character Babyhead, he is obviously a younger version of me. He's my younger self in a way.
I was going to ask you about that. You sorry. Well, now I'm going to refer to Babyhead. Okay.
Yeah. So Babyhead, yes. So to jump forward a little bit then, Babyhead is obviously based on the idea of in Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol. There's the ghost of Christmas past, the ghost of Christmas present, and the ghost of Christmas future. And so Babyhead's sort of playing that role of being my antagonist.
Yes.
I'm the protagonist. He's the antagonist. So he's there sort of needling me and is like the voice. He's the voice in my head. Basically, that's what he is.
We all, that's what I was going to tell you, that we all have that voice in our head that say, you are not doing enough. You could have done more. Why do you take a nap instead of going to a march? Something like that.
Yeah.
Something like very, very basic things that starts to corrode your inner thoughts. Sorry if I pronounce it wrong.
No, you're right. You're totally right. It's brilliant that you've got it and you understood what exactly.
But I got it. And I didn't get the whole Charles Dickens notion. I was thinking that maybe when you were doing the documentary, the editing process during the lockdown, say, oh my God, he must be very depressed because this is being too hard on himself. It's like you want to smack baby on it's like, oh my God. But there is also fun parts like the Wizard of Crass and also the mention of fame, fatal fame. I was laughing because I used to be a fan of Morrissey. Well, it's a tricky thing to say you're a fan of Morrissey today.
Yeah.
So the mix of underground culture, mainstream pop culture. Sometimes people don't understand that there is not like a war between, you can love them. Also, I would like to ask you about something that I haven't seen, which is your one-man show. You describe it as a one-man show. I checked some of the recent interviews you've done about Am I Invisible Yet? You describe it as a one-man show that you say, if I remember correctly, it is a companion piece of the documentary, and the script is based on lyrics that you were going to use on the second album of Interrobang, but sadly the band is no longer active. If I got that wrong, please correct me. What people will find in this particular show, and do you see some connections between it and the beginnings of Chumbawamba when you used to do theater and use props on your shows?
Oh, that's a good question. I think even when I started Interrobang with Griff and then Harry joined, I think even then Interrobang used theatre as well, actually, as it live. Like I would start the show in the audience at the back of the hall with a megaphone and walk through the audience and get up on stage, and then we would start. There was a bit in the middle of the set where I would go into the audience, shouting, "I'm mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore." So we used little bits, and I'd be up there with a placard, in the Interrobang set. And so there's those ideas are ones that I've taken into the one-man show. They are all things that I do in the one-man show as well, in a different way. But it felt like a very, very natural progression from one to the other, even though I'd never acted before. I mean, it always felt as though I was performing. I've always felt like a performer. And not necessarily an actor. And so when Interrobang used to play, when the set started and I'd be at the back of the room with a megaphone, I would think, right, now you are Dunstan Bruce of Interrobang. And it felt like it was the start of a performance. So doing the one-man show felt like an extension of that. And there's a lot of Interrobang songs in the one-man show because the lyrics are so relevant. So I've used the backing music, and I perform quite a few of the Interrobang songs over the music, and they sort of help tell the story and help drive the story along. So when Interrobang Interrobang still exists in a way. We still do odd shows.
Fantastic. I was going to ask you, because in the interview you say it better out. I imagine that means...
it's very, very low activity, I suppose you could say. We did a gig about a month ago supporting Steve Ignorant doing Crass songs.
Fantastic.
And that was brilliant. And we're going to Poland.
That you're playing again, and fantastic because of Steve Ignorant, you know?
Yeah. It was a great gig. It was a brilliant gig. It was really good. And we all really enjoyed it. And I think we'll always keep the idea of Interrobang alive. Creatively, it's not doing anything new at the moment. And so I put all my creative efforts into the one-man show.
Yeah.
And the one-man show came out of lockdown, basically, because me and Sophie finished the film. We finished editing the film. And we talked about what were we going to do next? What next? And I said to Sophie, do you think we'll ever make another film together again? And she rather bluntly said, no, I don't think we will. But in her defense, I've milked that for all, I've made a big thing of that, like, oh, you'll never make another film with me. Oh, but the reason she said that, and she explained this, the reason she said that, said, no, because I think you need to be in front of the camera, or you need to be on a stage.
Okay.
She was saying that is the thing that you are brilliant at that I can't do. And that's what you should be doing. You should be performing, because that's what you're good at. And so I was like, well, I've started writing this sort of one-man show. And she was like, okay, let's do that. Let's do that next. And I'll direct it. You perform it, I'll direct it. And so that's what we did. I wrote this hour-long show, and we've got another friend, Tom, who's producing it, who's an actor as well. So he's really helped me in the performance side of things. And so we've now got this one-man show that I've been performing, that we're now taking on tour this year.
It's wonderful.
Yeah. So and a lot of that is Interrobang stuff. I mean, it touches on the Chumbawamba story a bit, but it's more about that idea that everybody's had that feeling of becoming invisible. Of our generation, everybody at some point has felt, what am I doing? Am I relevant? Am I visible? What am I doing with my life and all that sort of stuff? So it's about those sort of things, and that's where it crosses over massively with the film, where it's about the idea that I'm trying to find a way of remaining, relevant and engaged and stuff like that in the world.
I would like to go back to the documentary, because I saw it, taking notes like a good journalist to ask some questions. And there was something on the trailer that was not on the documentary. It is an excerpt of an interview with Ian Mckaye. and I don't understand because I need closed captions to understand what people is saying. I understood from the documentary like 90% of everything, yeah. But what Ian said, I didn't understood, and I was thinking why he was left out on the cutting floor on the editing room.
Okay. What happened with Ian Mckaye was that we went to Washington DC to interview him. And we did it was amazing. It was completely amazing. Ian he can just talk and talk and talk and talk. He's incredible. He's absolutely incredible. And he's like, his memory is incredible. He's got an amazing, power of recall about stuff. So we did this interview with him. That was really good. He was, but what happened was that when we were putting the film together, is that we realized that the scene with Penny Rimbaud and the scene with Ian were doing exactly the same things in the film.
Okay.
So they were both sort of scenes where it was two really sort of revered elder statesmen of of punk past.
You just need one. It's like, okay, yes. Now I understood because
So I've got this amazing interview with Ian that I would love to do something with, because we had to make a decision. Who do we include? Do Ian or Penny? And obviously, because Penny did his dance and his performance, we were just like, wow.
You have to say his naked dance.
Yes, yeah. Because Penny did his naked dance.
4 versions of a dancing Penny. Sorry, I remember that scene very well.
Yeah,
very well.
Yeah.
But it was very engaging. Those conversations with Ken Loach, with Sean Forbes. I met Sean when I went to London. Because I was going from Airbnb to Airbnb, and he works at Rough Trade, and I went to eBay and I bought a lot of out of print music and books and magazines, and he was waiting for me, say, hey Carlos, there are 90 almost 20 packages for you on the desk. and he was like, I don't care. Just tell them to send them to Carlos Aliaga, because I get mixed up with all the package. so one of the package was this one.
Wow!
And he told me the story, like there's 2 different versions and this and that, and I got this one, and I remember when I was in London, I asked, are any members of Chumbawamba in London this week? Because I would love for you to get signed.
Wow.
But then you went to Portugal. I remember, if I remember correctly. Sorry, my memory.
Oh yes.
Yeah. But it was like I went back to the UK, and then you were traveling. Like we crossed paths. I don't remember which airport. Heathrow, Gatwick. I don't remember. Sorry, but I got this one. Also, this other one, Smash.
Smash Close 28. Yeah, if I also look.
It's very sad that these are not available anymore in Chile. I've never seen them on any record store ever. So I had to take the chance, and I got a lot of old magazines from there. I'm not going to show you everything, but there is a lot of Chumbawamba stuff that is unreleased. And Sean told me that, for example, he released this is not mine, this is from a friend. It's called History Ludite.
Oh yes,
it's a live at the Latin Library. Sounds very good. It's incredible. Has songs that are not available anywhere else,
wherever recorded.
And he's releasing some of his demos that he put out through 69 tapes. But he told me, and I hope that this isn't embarrassing, that some members of Chumbawamba are not very keen on this early stuff being re-released. So,
right.
Have you heard that? Are you one of those?
No, I'm not. No. I find all that early stuff really interesting. I think it's fascinating because obviously I was listening to a lot of it when I was making the film. you know, because we were finding, because we do use, in the film, we do use some unrecorded, some really early unrecorded Chumbawamba stuff.
Wow. Wow, I didn't notice that. I'm going to go back to that.
Yeah, there's there's a bit of live footage from Sheffield where there's a song that was never recorded, and underneath some footage there's I think it's a really early Chumbawamba song called "No More War," which features as well.
It passed me. I didn't register that moment. Sorry.
Yeah, and then obviously there's obviously we use Revolution. You know, a track off the Revolution thing in that Berlin scene. I think it's really fascinating, all those early demos. I think that it's really interesting to see what we were doing and what we were trying to do. I mean, maybe part of the problem is that they're not very good quality. There's about 4 or 5 that are on YouTube that you can find of the really early stuff. And some of them.
I'm going to digitalize this tape. A friend from France sent me some some bootlegs, and I'm digitalizing it because I believe, like Ian Mckaye, in preservation. Like you sometimes said something that you don't agree now, not anymore, but at least it was a part of you. Like you always going back to Doctor Who is like you are different persons in different moments of your life, and you have to regenerate in some ways.
I mean look at Chumbawamba. I mean we were on a Fuck EMI compilation album, and then we signed to EMI Germany. What could be more hypocritical than that? I mean, it's ridiculous.
That debate that you do, like all the boys.
Oh yes.
I was trying to think who said that, because it's like very discussion. We'll never know, but it's fascinating because, my God, I try to imagine bands like 4 people, and you have like 8 or 9 trying to get an agreement. Wow, like
that scene is cut down as well. It's longer. It's actually the original, the discussion was actually longer, but it was just too long, you know, for a scene. So we had to cut it. We had to cut it down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I can work out. I know who everybody is. You know, I know. And some of those characters are a combination of a couple of people, you know.
Okay, fascinating.
So it's not necessarily that each one is a particular person. Yes. Because they're not. Because I know that some of those things were said by different people. But what happened? Why I did that scene like that was because do you know the scene? You know the scene where we are all talking about the Brits and John Prescott and the Trick in the Water, and Dambitt's telling the story. So we're all together there. So in that evening when we were all together, we talked about a few different things. And one of the things I tried to start a conversation about was about us signing to EMI. And the conversation just didn't work. People weren't enthused enough about it to talk about it, or were a bit suspicious of my motives for wanting us to talk about it, or were worried about what they might say or something like that. I don't know. Anyway, people were a bit guarded. So the conversation never really took off.
If you didn't tell me, I would have never guessed, because it felt so like, and it is. I'm not trying to put something down. Like you feel like still have camaraderie, friendship.
Oh no! Sorry, no. The conversation we have that's in the film was really good. I'm on about. We had a conversation about signing to EMI that's not in the film. Okay. Yeah, no, I think the discussion about the Brits is brilliant, because everybody's really laughing about it. I love that. I love that scene. I really love that scene. No, we tried to have a conversation about signing to EMI and it didn't work. So that is why I did that. I created that scene where it was just me talking to myself. So I could be as you know, as angry about it, or as sort of reluctant about it as I wanted to be through the characters, you know. So this is like, you know, one of the characters is really sort of like, I don't give a fuck about anything, and another one's a bit like, oh, you know, people might slag us off, and you know, so it brings out all different things that people thought about the signing to him, I think.
But one thing I don't know if I mentioned before, but the good thing about this, the excellent thing about this documentary is that it can be seen by someone who has no idea about anarcho-punk, peace punk, I don't know how you call it. In the 90s, and in the one, and it will be very, wow, this is an interesting story which works on different levels. Like you want more. The thing is that you end up wanting more. Like you tell me about this conversation with Ian and say, oh, I hope he includes it on the DVD or the Blu-ray.
Yes, yeah. I mean, that's what I would love to do. I mean, I would love to I think the Ian interview could be a thing of could be a standalone thing that would be really interesting for people. Because he's fascinating to listen to. And it was really funny, in that thing, he's funny, Ian, because he stayed so true to his beliefs in such a way that he was sort of critical of Chumbawamba without being critical. I don't know, without being critical or something. Or he was just like accidentally a bit harsh, but he was just being himself, and he was right. He was usually right in what he was saying.
Harsh as Sean, because Sean is the hardest critic I've known. He's hilarious. He's so funny. But I remember reading when the acoustic version of Chumbawamba ended playing, there was a long feature on a magazine called The Jacobin. I hope I got the name right.
Oh, yeah.
And it said, if I quote correctly, that Ian didn't talk to all the people in Chumbawamba for years after the EMI signing. Is that true, or is that
no, it's not true. No.
Oh, I'm going to chalk it as a bullshit rumor. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's not true. I mean,
but did you lose?
I mean, he sort of says in this long interview, he sort of says, look, I just don't listen to the radio. I wasn't really aware of what was going on, really. He just wasn't interested. He just wasn't interested in Chumbawamba being in the mainstream, just because he didn't think that was something that he would ever do himself. And so he was just like, look, I don't care, whatever, great. I really love Chumbawamba. I used to love what you did, and you were really amazing. But I don't care about that. He was sort of brutally honest about it, really, and I sort of appreciated that in a way. Sorry, go on.
No, I hope that someday we can see that documentary, that part of the documentary of the conversation, because it's very funny. Everybody has a story about how they discovered Chumbawamba, whatever it was, in a squad in the early 80s, or through a cassette. For me, it was very strange because I had a friend who was an exchange student living in the south of Chile, and we didn't have any record stores with independent music, no vinyl, no nothing. So she went back to Seattle, and I sent her a list of things that I was interested, and I read about you because a friend had lent me Nevermind The Ballots, and I said, wow, it's a very good. So she sent me this CD that she found. I think it was in Tower Records or something like that, and she was grumbling like it was very expensive. No, this one was very expensive because it was an import. So she sent me CDs, and then for me, it was like in 96. Like, wow, all these lyrics and interviews, and they're mentioning people that had to go out. And then Chumbawamba was everywhere. Like months later, like it was very strange, like discovering a very underground band that is like listening to Crash one week, and the next one they are on top of the pops, for example. So,
Totally right.
There is a part in the documentary where Harry mentions about being part of the Labour Party, which seems like a long evolution from Nevermind The Ballots to approaching a more pragmatic way of dealing with voting. You also have used a Howard Zinn quote that I'm going to repeat. We don't have to engage in grand heroic actions to participate in the process of change. Small acts, when multiplied by millions of people, can transform the world. What I'm trying to ask you is, in this moment, for you, which are the best ways to change the world from a personal perspective?
Okay, firstly, Harry's not a member of the Labour Party anymore.
Voting for the Labour Party.
he wants that made very clear. That was at a time when Jeremy Corbyn came to power, and there was like, it felt as though something was not came to power, sorry, became leader of the Labour Party, and it felt as though there was a possibility of some sort of real sort of change within the left, within the left, and obviously that was quashed. That's when he joined the Labour Party around that time. He's not a member now. I've thought about this question a lot, about how do we make a difference in the world, and I think what it came down to really was thinking that it's a lot of small. Is that sort of Howard Zinn idea? There's a lot of small things. It was like I tell you what it felt like. It felt like when we made Slap and we wrote an album about small, and the songs, the nature of the songs changed from being complaining about everything to trying to find ways in which we'd sort of won at small victories or seen some sort of incremental change because of people coming together. And I just feel as though that has come around again, that idea, that philosophy, that maybe what's important is finding our community and finding the people who we have stuff in common with, and finding the strength in that, which is something that I found with Interrobang. Was when Interrobang started touring, as much as I really enjoyed getting back up on stage and performing and people enjoying the music, what I found really empowering was the fact that I was in this situation where you're with a lot of people who feel the same thing or share in your politics or your beliefs. And I think the one man show is a bit like that as well. It's like bringing together people and just trying to inspire people to just not give up in a way, and just to carry on thinking that what we still want a better world, and we can't give up on that idea. And so, I mean, I've never really been involved in party politics or tried to, change the world in that way. But I think a lot of what I've found encouraging or helpful or inspiring is finding those smaller groups of people who are doing things in their own community or in their own town, and are affecting change in that way. And that's the sort of thing that I find is the sort of thing that if you get involved at that level, at that grassroots level, that sort of community level, that's how we can start to make change from the bottom up. So I find that really a powerful way of doing things. But for me personally, I mean, I just think that what I discovered, that what my role in all this was, is to maybe just try and be a catalyst for all that, or a point at which people come together and feel rejuvenated and re-energized by the fact that there's lots of us who are trying to do that.
Something that I'm going to say now is that thanks to you, all the members of Chumbawamba, all the effort you've done, we discovered a world of music, of films, of books, and it's been so great. It's like you go back and say, wow, they talk about the fall. I'm reading a book about the fall, like it was written by the bassist of the band, and it's like,
oh yes, I've read that book.
It's incredible.
I've read that book.
Spinal Tap meets, I don't know, something very weird, very English. I hope they make. But okay, let's go back in track. We were talking about good ways to change the world, and I was thinking Chumbawamba evolved from pacifism to later to supporting the miners' strike, to having a song that was never released about supporting the IRA, to Bader Meinhof. I hope that I pronounced it right, because my And there was also one unreleased single about Harry Roberts. If people are listening to this, he was a convicted cop killer. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I understand violence sometimes when you have no choice. Yeah, yeah. But has your views about political violence have evolved with the years?
I think part of the issue with me is that I am now a middle-class, middle-aged white man in a complete position of privilege. And I'm keenly aware of the privilege that I have and the relatively comfortable lifestyle I live. I think it's easy to pontificate from on high about how other people should conduct their struggle, and I don't think, from my perspective, that I would ever judge, movements and communities who use violence in some way. Sometimes it's, sometimes I think it is entirely necessary and unavoidable. And I think the problem is the power of the state wherever in the world is enormous, and it's very hard to win that. It's very hard to win that battle in most cases. I think it's also I think I have to be careful talking about armed struggle, as I've never been in a situation where I've been involved in armed struggle. I've only sort of I've only given my support for others who are involved in armed struggle, and sometimes that's necessary, and you can't. I think it's dangerous to judge people who are involved in armed struggle and say, but that's just using violence to try and that the idea that violence is an admission that you're wrong in a way, and I don't think it always is, because sometimes it's about self-defense and it's about fighting back.
Yes,
and I think that's
Yeah.
So I've never been in that situation where I've had to do that. So I haven't got a problem with supporting armed struggle. I mean, I'm not a violent person at all.
That's the dichotomy that I've been all these years trying to struggle. Like, there are guys and women who are literally helping old ladies cross the road, and at the same time they say, what will be good if any member of the audience will go out and kill. I remember I would listen to that. Say, okay, in a way, I was thinking, if they were they were known, that would be the headline of the review. I
know. So it's like, if I see, if I see on a demonstration, if I see some fascists getting beaten up, I haven't got a problem with that. I don't think, poor fascists. That's really sad that there's somebody's hitting them. I don't think that at all. I just think, yes, get in, brilliant. Those people, I don't know. I sort of, that sort of conflicts for me a little bit with the idea that the world we live in now in 2022, it feels as though everybody's just shouting at each other and nobody's listening. And so I don't necessarily think that violence is the solution. I don't think it's the solution at all. But I think sometimes it's a necessary evil that people are pushed into employing. But my bigger worry is that people don't listen anymore, and we live in a world where it's really hard to debate with people. It's easy to argue with people, and a big concern of mine for the last, 5 or 10 years is that idea, the echo chamber thing. That all we're doing is just like shouting at ourselves, at people who think the same thing as us. And that's affected the way I use social media. I feel angry. I feel angry about stuff all the time. But then I don't necessarily see the point of me ranting about that on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever, because I feel as though well, I'm just talking to people who probably feel the same as me anyway, and then we just get involved in like arguments with people who roughly think the same thing. I think the bigger problem is, how do we talk to, you know, those people? Like the Brexit thing in Britain.
Yes,
that was a shock. That was an absolute shock, because I think we just thought that was never going to happen. We just couldn't believe it was going to happen, and it really made me realize how out of touch, you know, the people on the left were with what people, you know, with what the rest of the country was feeling and thinking, and how those people, you know, got to that stage where they were voting for something that would mean that they were worse off. It's such a weird situation that there was a lot of working class people who voted for Brexit, and Brexit is obviously punishing them massively, because everything that it stands for and is doing is against the working classes. It's absolutely, I mean, I found that shocking and depressing, that, you know, we're now in a world where the power of propaganda and lies is enormous, and it's how do we counter that? How do we sort of like persuade or let those people understand or know that, you know, like that's, you know, that you there's a phrase in Britain, you know, cutting off your nose to spite your face. And it's that idea that people have voted for Brexit as a protest vote, and it's it's totally backfired.
Yes,
and it's the same to me. It's the same in the States, where Trump got into power. You know, that was an indication of how disillusioned the ordinary people are with politics and politicians. And I thought Brexit was like that as well. It was a moment where I just thought, these people, these people aren't being, are being ignored or discarded. And so, you know, there was a massive I felt as though both things were a massive protest vote,
the protest vote, at least from what I understand, goes. You can vote for the left or for the right. If there is a right-wing government, they will vote for the left. You were asking before a couple of months ago about what was happening here in Chile.
Oh yes, yeah.
I don't know if you got any information. I prepared some bullet points for you, but basically it all started in 2019. There was a massive social upheaval, revolt. They call it La Revuelta, and it happened 3 blocks from here, because I'm near the biggest square in Santiago de Chile.
Oh, so wow!
If I will show you there was a church in front of my building, burned down, hotels, every government building, banks. Well, that led to having this process that we're going to have in September, a referendum to vote a new constitution to replace the one that was written during Pinochet's dictatorship.
Right.
I'm trying to summarize everything in very precious minutes. Okay.
Yeah.
So there was the voting. 80% of the people voted for a new constitution. It was like, oh my God, we're going to have to see real changes in education, health, pensions. Brilliant. Fucking brilliant. It was a massive celebration. Then there was the presidential election, and we almost, on the first round of voting, we almost got a guy who is a very right-wing Christian, homophobic, misogynistic, I don't know how to express everything, disgusting, and he almost got...
A bit like Bolsonaro, then.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. He's a friend of Bolsonaro. He went to Miami to meet Marco Rubio. Yesterday I was reading his opinions against abortion, and it was like he tried to project the image, the facade of a democratic person. Like I tolerate everything, but we almost got what we call here a Pinochetista. Pinochetista is someone who supported Pinochet, and he also his friend of all those army officials who are in jail for the disappearance. He's been trying to get them pardon. And
oh my God.
people were almost falling for that. But thankfully that day they went en masses. I mean, there has never been such an increase in voting, but it was a close call.
Wow.
If the same amount of people of the first round had voted, he will be or Bolsonaro. And that's something that scares me, and it's going to lead to the next question. Because you have sometimes you, me, we have friends who are true hardcore anarchists who say everyone is a fascist. You know, like I will vote because Boric, who is now our president, is the same, is a yellow centrist candidate, and it's the same as that fascist. And I grab my head and say, no, it's not the same. It's not the same. And the things that when you were talking about being out of touch, sometimes that make me think about anarchists. Well, I don't know if I can consider myself an anarchist. I sympathize with the ideas, but sometimes it's like the purity of the ideas. Like anarchists don't vote, like a dogma, like a religious dogma. Have you met people like that in the past? And very respectfully, have you been one of those people in the past before?
I totally have. And I felt in the 80s, probably through the 90s as well. I would refuse to vote, but then the idea was always that, look, you know, like there's an election, but then the struggle carries on the next day, and it makes no difference. We still feel the same, and we still want the same things, and we still want the world to change in a certain way. And so I always used to post that thing, that French thing about, was it the vote changes nothing, the struggle continues. And in a way, I think that's sort of true. So I sort of empathize with those sort of ideas of not voting and but I think the important thing is that, it's not just about sitting on the sidelines and complaining about people voting. People who vote aren't stupid. We have an opportunity, to mobilize people in a way, and the majority of people will use that democratic right to vote. And I think we should. I'm all for encouraging that, in situations, particularly in Britain in the last 5 or 10 years, where I think, I just want to get the Tories out. I think that's, to me, that is the most important thing.
How many years have you been under the Tory regime?
It feels like about 20 years now. I don't know how long it is, but it's been a long time.
I was working on Reuters when the Brexit vote happened, and said, "Oh my God, this is terrible news for the world." Because when these things happen, it emboldens the right wings, like in the USA, Trump, and then Bolsonaro. And then Duterte, I don't know, he's going to leave a new president that is worse. You say, how much worse? He's the son of President Marcos. Yes.
Oh, yeah. It's Marcos' son, Oh
my God. And you think, and you were talking about voting as a protest vote. But where does that go? Like, I'm going to vote for anything but this without thinking.
So I think I suppose obviously, people talk about, like you were talking about ballots, Nevermind The Ballots earlier on, and I still think that's I think that's relevant. I think the whole point about that was it's fine whether you vote or you don't vote. The important thing is whether you're involved, whether you stay involved in the struggle and want to help make the world a better place. And I think that's more important. That's as important as whether you vote or not. I think voting has a tactical, it's a tactically valid thing. I'm not against that, and I've started to do that myself and encourage other people to do it. But I still think that it should be like a gateway thing to people mobilizing and doing something, doing something else, and putting pressure on. I think what happened with the Labour Party in the last 5 or 10 years, particularly when Corbyn was leader, was that the left wing of the party became quite active again, and quite started to push through and apply pressure to the party to push its policies to the left. And that worked for a couple of years until obviously Corbyn got removed for one reason or another.
I miss him. I wish he had become.
Yeah. I think it would have been amazing, because the way the youth mobilized around him was incredible. A friend of mine, Kia, wrote a whole book called Generation Left, which was all about how the younger generation, like how there's a natural propensity for younger people to be more left wing than right wing, and that as we get older, people move towards the right. And I think that was that was a really interesting time when Corbyn engaged a lot of young people because of his politics. And I thought that this is something might happen here. There's so many young people getting involved and supporting them. So not only we're going to vote for Labour, but we're getting involved at a grassroots level in protest movements and stuff like that. And that was sort of combined with the the climate change movement, which, over here was like so very much came from young people. There was all these school strikes, inspired by Greta Thunberg announcing that, every Friday we should go on strike. And it became a massive thing in Britain, younger people getting involved in politics and thinking about the world.
Also, in the UK, you had the same thing that they had in the USA, the Black Lives Matter movement.
Yeah.
It's something perhaps these causes, each one separated, can galvanize people together into action. They can vote, obviously, to avoid that you and me have governments that punish immigrants. This insane or Bolsonaro. His name is Cast. His surname is Cast. His father was a Nazi official who escaped from Germany during the war. He wanted to replicate the whole thing that Donald Trump did with the wall, but like doing like a hole, like what you have on the medieval castles.
Yeah,
you have
a
very big moat.
Yeah,
alongside. And oh my God, it's like wow. So if my vote helps to save the life of someone who's trying to get an abortion, or someone who's living in a you don't have to be so precious about these things. It's like
no. And I think that's part of the problem, is that people are really precious about it, and you don't need to be precious about it. It's just a tool. That's all it is. It's not the be all and end all. It's just something that we can do as part of something much, much bigger. It's just like one part. It's one small part of a much bigger, act of resistance, as I see it.
I'm going to, if you don't have any comment about that issue, I'm going to ask you the last question, and I'm going to leave you to the day. I don't know how sunny is the day in Brighton today.
It's really lovely. Look, it's really nice.
Oh my God.
Blue sky.
You show that, and then the sky lit up like it was a miserable British day here in Chile. And I miss my cup of tea. Well, you were in the 80s. I remember in the first Chumbawamba record, the name is too long. I only call it Pictures. You mentioned the singer Victor Jara, who died during the coup here in Chile. And I was going to ask you, where you discovered what had happened in Chile with Pinochet and Allende was perhaps based on music, television, Washington Bullets by The Clash, something like that?
I think probably the Victor Jara thing came out through as in the 80s. I think me and Boff in particular got interested in Irish rebel music, and we were exploring that. And we went to Ireland, we went to Belfast a couple of times as part of a Troops Out delegation. and to see what it was like for Republicans living under British rule in Northern Ireland, and so we sort of became aware of people like Christy Moore, who was a big influence on us in the mid '80s, early '80s, mid '80s, and then the Wolf Tones, bands like the Wolf Tones, and so what that led on to was us researching English rebel music and discovering that. I mean, at that point in time, I think we only thought that rebel music was punk or Irish rebel music, and what that did was open up our eyes to like protest music around the world, and I think it was through stuff like Woody, listening to Woody Guthrie, or I think Christy Moore might have done a song about Victor Hara anywhere.
I'll check it.
Yeah, and it might have been through that we sort of started looking into stuff like that, finding out about the fact that there was like protest music around the world. There didn't have to be. There wasn't just punk music. There wasn't anarcho-punk music, and so I think that's how we discovered that this sort of thing was going on all over. And then obviously because Thatcher was such good mates with Pinochet, that brought the whole idea. That brought Chilean, the Chilean what had happened in Chile to our attention, in a way that it maybe wouldn't have if there wasn't so much news around Pinochet and Thatcher being best friends.
That was, I imagine that in the 80s you got all the information from the BBC, from the newspapers, and they were not saying openly, look, Washington is supporting dictatorships all over Latin America. Is that correct?
Yeah. But I mean, we were also aware of, because of that time in the 80s, we were involved in doing stuff for the Nicaraguan Solidarity Campaign as well. So we were aware of stuff that was going on in Central America, and that also led on to what was going on in South America in general, and that how the US was propping up all these sort of dictatorships, it
wasn't something that was available on the mainstream media.
I can't remember, because I suppose we had alternative publications that we used to read at the time, like magazines like Peace News and stuff like that. They would talk about those sort of issues, before the internet, I suppose, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But because we were involved in that, because we were involved in a world, a political world, people talked about those sort of things anyway. We had friends who used to go to Nicaragua to work, to help the struggle there, and so we were aware of what was going on there. And so that was, so that sort of broadened out to, to South America as well, I suppose.
Thank you so much for all your time, for your patience. sorry, I can't pronounce it.
That's all right, man.
And have a very nice tour of the Am I Invisible Yet show. And I really hope that the documentary gets a wide distribution beyond the film.
Yeah, so do I.
And if someday you I don't know, you release it on DVD, please put some closed caption, because I would like to see it again and understand all the.
There is a closed caption. We have done a closed caption.
Yes,
there is one. Yeah.
And if
so, there will be one available.
If you need Spanish subtitles, please let me know. I can do that as a way to say thank you for free for you. Okay, so thank you. Have a lovely day.
Thank you, Carlos. It's lovely to talk to you. It's lovely to meet you in person. Well, kind of in person, but not quite in person. But it's closer. We're getting closer and closer and closer. Okay. All right. Bye. Cheers, Carlos. Bye now. Bye.
Says into a ground function, it waits for call to action. Mute and obedience, standing to attention. Look a little closer, the dog is a man.